All right, guys, here's our next card. So we have this fun printed paper that we're going to die cut out of the front, and then we're going to do the fun pop-up in the middle. So I'll show you how to do that. Remember, we had those printed paper pieces that we needed in the beginning, so we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of those. And sometimes I like to see which pattern looks better on each. Okay, so those are those 5, and then you've got 3 leftover pieces we'll use on another card later. Okay, so those are the 5 that we need, one of each of those patterns. All right, and then you're going to take the printed paper piece, and die cut the balloon, which I've done here. And then, of course, we'll do our die brush again, because gosh darn it, that's so helpful. And again, I used the precision plate and I went back and forth, and look at that, almost every piece came out right off the bat. Just one more little piece right here. Get my poker out. There we go. Awesome. All right, so I'll set that aside, and I'll prepare my layer of my top layer of cardstock here, my Whisper White. I'm going to stamp Love is in the Air in Night of Navy. Well, actually, we're going to back up. We're not going to stamp Love is in the Air. We'll get to that. I apologize. First, we're going to stamp the clouds in the background. And here's an optional one too. If you want, especially for those of you who bought the bundle, when you have a whole pack of your glimmer paper, you could certainly add some glimmer clouds to this. Okay, so that's a good amount of clouds, I think. And then we'll put this over the top. Yeah, I like that. All right, now let's do our silicone mat again, but this time let's clean it off first. Rub all of this glue off of here, and then we'll have a nice clean mat to work with, because of course that is ideal. Okay, so I have this little ribbon that I've sort of now kind of permanently adhered to the front of it, and it serves 2 purposes. 1, so I remember where my glue is, and 2, so I remember which side is up, because we don't want to I wouldn't want to accidentally put it down like this. I'd have glue everywhere, if you know what I mean. All right, so I'll grab my sponge again, and we'll just even out. Now here especially, you don't have to be perfect with your adhesive. Just get some on there and that thing will stick down just fine, which of course I love. All right, so I've got it on like that, and we are all set. And look at how wonderfully that has stuck down to my paper. Oh, just makes me happy. Okay, now what we're going to do is take and sponge just a teensy bit of color over one of our hearts. So if you go back to, I'm just looking for my right sponge here. Oh, here we go. If you go back to one of the pieces you cut, use this as a mask, or you certainly could cut another, but that was my intention, is to use that as a mask. Or if you have a sponge dauber, that works really nicely as well. But you can just daub some color on here. I'm using Watermelon Wonder. And what I also recommend is kind of getting rid of that first layer first. And then you can go ahead and sponge this onto your card. That first layer of ink just kind of helps get rid of any sharp amount of color, so you don't get big dots or anything. Okay, now I will say I noticed I got a little off here on the edge. I could have put a post-it note over that to cover it up. so that I wouldn't have had that problem, like so. Then it would have protected the rest of my paper. Or I could have had a bigger piece of paper. I just happened to grab this because it was close. It was actually in the trash. All right, so word to the wise. Now I'm going to stamp My Love Is in the Air in Night of Navy right over the top of the heart. All right. And you have a piece of long twine. You can take and cut that in half, and you have a generous amount to use on this card and one other card for the same purpose. You're just going to tie a bow and adhere it right onto the balloon. And like I said, you do have a pretty generous amount here. I wasn't going to short you. Okay, so I'll just attach that right here. Oops. There we go. And then layer it up on my Night of Navy layer. I lost my adhesive. Okay, and finally, I'm going to adhere this to my card. So now we have the front. We've got to do the inside, and the inside is very easy, but I have a couple of great tips for you. So if you have a ruler or something you can use as a straight edge, that makes this whole process a little easier. I found that, in fact, let me even show you an example of something you could use like this. So I found if I took that and then drug my scissors, just the tip of my scissors across here, it kind of scored this in half for me, okay? And you can see, if it's not perfect, that is not the end of the world. You just want it to be roughly in half. You don't want it to be a huge gaping edge, but you can see I have a little peak of the other side. That's okay. All right, and you're going to do that to each one. So roughly half. I just think this is much easier than trying to just fold it, and maybe you can just fold it. I wasn't having luck with it. I don't know. Here, let me see if it will work. Oh, maybe it's not so bad. Okay, well, those are your two options. You can either free fold it or you can try and score it. But then, you know, that gets into where exactly is the halfway point. And I know some of you, it will drive you nuts. So see, here's where I have a little trouble getting it to fold down here. But there again, it doesn't matter if it's not exactly perfect because it'll be okay. Okay. And by the way, you're folding it so that the design you like is to the inside, just in case you weren't sure. Because some of these were using the pattern on both sides and some of them were not. So, okay. So now what I'm going to do is open this back up, and I'm going to adhere, not the whole thing, but just the tips of each balloon. Okay. So just like that first, you know, maybe 1/4 of an inch is what I want to adhere. All right, so I'm going to use my Fast Fuse. You could also use, and actually here's where using your rubber mat works well, because see how my adhesive stuck to that? It won't do that to my rubber mat. All right, so I'm just going to put adhesive on half and adhere, and do the same thing here, not on half, just on 1/4 of an inch. And then do you see it didn't stick to anything? That was kind of handy. Okay. And don't worry about down here. That'll be fine. And then I kind of like to bend these just a little bit so they get a natural bend for what they should open up to. All right. And I'll fold them back down. Keep doing my 1/4 inch of adhesive roughly on here. Putting the next one on and then opening it up and kind of giving it a bending idea. so it does the proper amount of bending. All right, and here's my last one. So that was easy. Okay. And then again, I'm not creasing this, I'm just kind of bending it. There's no crease. It's just a suggestion. So there we go. Okay, so I like to kind of pull it out a little taut so you can see how far open it'll get, so that when we go to put it in our card, we can kind of see the correct positioning for it. So when it's open, it's going to be roughly this far apart. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and you see I'm holding it in this spot, then I will put plenty of adhesive right here, glue that in like so. Then I'll fold it all up and I will put plenty of adhesive on this side, and I will rub off the excess. Okay, so I've got plenty on that side, and then I'll fold my card in half, press on it, and then voila. Haha. You see how I did that? Very easy. Now, the other thing that we probably should have done first, but actually I don't think I did it on my sample either until afterwards, oops, stamped mine. By the way, I did not do that creasing thing. Not crease, but just convince it to bend thing I mentioned. And that, I think, made a difference. Okay, now what I want to do on here is take my little love heart from our stamp set and then stamp this in several spots on here, kind of randomly, like so. And then I kind of leave the bottom open so that you can write on the bottom. Isn't that sweet? So that's all there is to it. Really cute. You can also use liquid glue, and that will work very well for adhering the tips of each of these. It's completely up to you, whichever you prefer. I'm kind of lazy, so that's why I did fast fuse. There you go.